There's a new definition of insanity, and that's giving Bobby Hurley too many chances to turn ASU basketball around. It's time to move on.
You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Richie Bradshaw, and I will be your guide for everything Arizona State Sun Devils. Shout out to my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks to all of you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off of your first purchase. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to finally have a very difficult conversation about Bobby Hurley. Is it time to move on? What are the consequences of moving on? How long is this rebuild going to take? And most importantly, what's Graham Rossini think? And who might he be thinking about for a target? That's all coming up on the show. The definition of insanity is where I want to start. If you do not know, the definition of insanity goes something like this: doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Well, that's what ASU has been doing with Bobby Hurley now for 10 seasons. And look, I like Bobby. I used to love Bobby. I'd go to war for Bobby at one point in time. We are not there anymore because we continue to see over and over and over again that Bobby Hurley is what he is, and that is a mediocre at best head coach, probably not someone who is cut out for Power 4 at this point in time. He is a great recruiter who somehow cannot get the most out of his players. He doesn't win conference games, and he certainly doesn't go to the tournament. And when he does zilch, nada, zip, nothing. We know what he is. Is it time to move on? I have been battling this question for years at this point. Since the start of this podcast in 2021, I have been battling this question of, is it time to move on from Bobby Hurley? And I've had the same questions over and over again, but I'm at a point where I'm sick and tired of it. It's time to move on. Look at his resume, and it tells you what you need to know. Sometimes looking at numbers, well, that doesn't tell the whole story. Well, in this case, it does. Look at his resume. Look at what he's done since getting to Arizona State, and you see exactly who Bobby Hurley is. 167 wins to 140 wins overall. That's a .544 winning percentage. Okay, that's not bad. I'll take that winning percentage. Well, then we get to conference play, which includes 9 years in the Pac-12 and his first year in the Big 12, which, what a freaking failure it has been in the Big 12 this year. In 10 seasons, and counting, because this season's not over, by the way, he is 82-95 in conference play, .463 winning percentage. He has had a whopping 3 seasons with a winning record in conference play. He also has 1 season where he was 500. Even you include that 500, that is 6 seasons with losing records in conference play. The Pac-12, I understand there's been some good teams, right? UCLA, Arizona were pretty consistently good. Oregon had more good years than not. USC had a handful of years. There was all sorts of teams that would come up for a couple of seasons and be solid, and then you had your annual contenders. ASU was never one of those. Yeah, they had 3 winning records, but I mean, that felt more like an anomaly than anything else now that we seriously get to look at the entirety of Hurley's career here at Arizona State. It's more of a shock that he has 3 winning seasons in any conference. Of course, they all come in the Pac-12, because now that we have moved on to the Big 12, which, remember, this is the big boys. This is the conference for college basketball. Arizona, Kansas, Houston, among the top teams. And then you've got so much depth, man. There's Baylor that's playing good. Texas Tech has been playing good. Arizona State should have been one of those teams. They're not. Iowa State, how do I not mention Iowa State? One of the top 5 ranked teams in the country, unless they dropped in the recent poll, which I didn't see. I don't know how I didn't mention them off the top. Yeah, Big 12's been really good this year. And Arizona State was supposed to be the sleeper team. They were. I hyped this team up. I was 100% a believer that ASU was going dancing this year. There was too much talent. That's what I said. There's too much talent on this team to squander it. And if you did, we had to have this conversation. Well, here we are on the roof having this conversation. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. ASU, to start the season, before they got into conference play, and in typical Bobby Hurley fashion, 9 wins, 2 losses. Their only losses were to Gonzaga and Florida. Everyone else, they got wins. Some of them were closer than they needed to be, but you got the wins, and you showed off some of the talent. You saw guys like the Sheer Jihad having great starts. Your 2 freshman 5-stars, Joson Sanon and Jayden Quaintance, were having good starts of their career as well. BJ Freeman was your leading scorer through that time. Alston Mason had a role for himself. Everything looked like it was rolling. And you were heading into conference play, 9 wins, 2 losses to ranked teams. And you were like, okay, you know what? Might be able to do something here. Especially because that loss against Gonzaga was a very tight loss. And that was in Spokane. Like, that's not an easy place to play. And ASU was right in that game. So you look back and you're like, man, I think they might do something. And then, nope. 3-8 in conference play as of now. Last night against K-State, that game told me all I need to know about Bobby Hurley, and that's that this team cannot close games when they need to. And they just have this inconsistent identity with the team. They come out with a 15-0 lead. 15-0. And then they continue to chuck up these shots. The shot selection, I don't even think it was shot selection, man. I do not have words to describe what it was last night. Every single possession, we're going to shoot a 3-point, and there were so many bricks. And it's like you just wasted that possession because ASU's not getting offensive rebounds. And that's it. And then you're giving K-State an opportunity to go down the court. And, for the first 10 minutes, K-State couldn't do anything. So you're sitting there and you're like, oh, ASU's going to run away with this. And then you remember this is ASU basketball. They lose the game 71-70. Somehow with a 15-0 lead in the first half, they trail going into halftime. They can't get it done against Kansas State. Now, you can blame all sorts of stuff. You can blame the free throw shooting at the very end of the game. I do not think that's fair because there were more opportunities throughout this game that should have won it. If you are in a position where you lose the game because of free throws, I don't know that you deserve to win the game in general. Not unless you're winning because of free throws because you're getting fouled and the other team's putting you on the line. That's your exception. But if you're trailing and you're depending on free throws to win, that's on you. That is not on a single individual player. So get off of that poor young man's back. He's going to be just fine. Let's go ahead and talk about all of the talent, by the way. Because Bobby Hurley, for all of his faults, my goodness, he's a good recruiter. I have got a ton of names here that I want to discuss, and I'll be sure to go through nice and quick. But in his time, in his 10 years with ASU, he has landed 3 consensus 5-star players. He has landed several other players that are borderline 5-star. Of the top 25 recruits in the history of recruiting for Arizona State since it was tracked, he has 18 of the top 25 recruits ever for this program since it was tracked. Bobby Hurley got him. Do you know how insane that is? To have 18 of the top 25 kids ever, several 5-stars, several borderline 5-stars, several super duper high 4-star players, and you have a losing record in conference play. You have been to the tournament 3 times. You have been in the what's it called? The final, not the final 4, the play-in round, essentially. Yeah, the play-in round. You've been in the play-in round all 3 times, so you've never outright made the tournament. You're 2-1, and then you get to the round of 64, and you lose. They have never advanced past the round of 64. They have been to the tournament 3 times. They are 2-1 in the play-in and 0-2 in the round of 64. And here's the talent. Here's the talent that he is squandering. Josh Christopher, 1 season with ASU. At the time, he was the highest-rated recruit ever. Losing season, losing record in Pac-12. Lou Dortz, 2018, 2019. That was a really good season for ASU. That was their first tournament appearance for the program. They were 23-11 that year. Okay, that sounds like a good thing there. That sounds like a sign of things to come. Enoch Bache. Does that name sound familiar? It should, because he was here not that long ago. 2 seasons with ASU. They had a losing record in the season where he got minimal minutes. And then the next season, they were 23-13 overall because they caught lightning in the bottle with the Cambridge brothers, with Warren Washington, with Frankie Collins, and Bache didn't get on the court. So as far as I'm concerned, 23-13, and Bache didn't even get to contribute. Marcus Bagley, that's a crazy name for ASU because, man, he was supposed to be special. But ASU, 2 losing seasons with him. The only season where he played more than 3 games, they went 11-14, and then he was there in that 2022-23 season, but he played 2 games that year. They didn't get anything out of him. Tayshawn Cherry, another super highly recruited kid. He played 3 seasons at Arizona State. 2 winning seasons, and then the 11-14 season that came in 2020 and 2021. In the 2018-2019 season, where he played with Lou Dort, they went to the tournament. In the 2019-2020 season, that was a really good ASU team. They were 20-11 overall, 11-7 in Pac-12 play. Doesn't seem that crazy. In fact, it's worse than the year before. That was a good team. And unfortunately, they were absolutely bound for the tournament. They didn't make it. That team still had Remy Martin. They had Kamani Lawrence and then Tayshawn Cherry. And it's like, this is the team. This is the team we're going to do something with. And they didn't even get a chance. And after COVID, they haven't done anything. Now, you have Jayden Quaintance and Joson Sanon, the 2 highest rated recruits, or 2 of the 3 highest rated recruits in the history of the program. Jayden Quaintance, number 1. They're 12-9 overall, 3-7 in the Big 12. They are not going to the tournament. They are not going to contend in the Big 12 tournament, and they're not in they're NIT. They're not an NIT team. There's no question that Bobby Hurley can recruit, but there is a huge question of why, with all of this amount of talent, there is almost no success here. And I don't want to hear some of these guys didn't do anything. Like Enoch Bache, Marcus Bagley, like they couldn't get on the court. That's on them. All the talent in the world, how come they're not getting on the court? That feels like a coaching problem, not a Marcus Bagley, not an Enoch Bache problem. That feels like a coaching problem. Josh Christopher, Lou Dortz, Tayshawn Cherry, they had success. Jayden Quaintance, Joson Sanon, they're having success despite up and down freshman years, and yet they can't do anything with it. And the last handful of years, Bobby Hurley's attacked the transfer portal and gotten several good players. They've made the tournament once since COVID happened. That's just inexcusable. There's minimal to no success that has come from this team. It's pitiful at best. But if you move on, there are consequences that will be paid. That's coming up next. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you're looking for tickets for your next big event, whether it's a concert, comedy show, or sports game, finding the right ticket at the right price can be a headache. But with Game Time Picks, it's never been easier. I'll explain how it works, because with their new feature, Game Time Picks, we'll get to that. I'll tell you what, though. This app is going to do all the hard work for you. It curates the best deals so you don't have to waste time searching through endless tickets. I've been using Game Time Picks for a while. It's how I got my tickets to the Peach Bowl back at the beginning of the year. Their curated deals make it super, super simple to find great tickets at a great price, no matter how much sifting through the thousands of ticket options you do. Game Time Picks option, the one I was just telling you about, is going to help you out I grabbed a super deal for that prime seat in the end zone of the Peach Bowl, and I couldn't believe that the value was there, and it was a steal for a college football playoff game. That seat view, I was able to get a look at it too. Before I purchased the ticket, before I even hit buy, I knew what it was going to look like, and it was very reassuring. The best part is you're covered with Game Time's lowest price guarantee. If you find a better deal somewhere else, and I promise you won't, but if somehow you do, they will refund you 110% of the difference, and your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time. Easy cancellation options if anything comes up. If you find tickets in the same section, row for less, there's 110% of the difference that they will pay back to you. If you're ready for your next event to be even better, you need to download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Locked On College. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. I appreciate each and every single one of you for tuning in and making Locked On Sun Devils your first listen of the day, and a shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. Let's continue to have a very difficult conversation about Bobby Hurley and the consequences of moving on from Hurley. I know that sounds like a crazy thing, right? How can there be consequences from moving on from Bobby Hurley when he has had such minimal success? We just spent 14 minutes of this show, very detailed show, if you guys couldn't tell. 14 minutes we spent talking about the inability of Bobby Hurley to capitalize on this talent, to win games, to win conference games, to go to the tournament, to win games in the tournament. We just talked about all of that. Richie, how are there consequences here? There's quite a bit of consequences, believe it or not. And I think this is why Bobby has had such a long leash. I think that this is the reason why Bobby has still been around. Now, I also think that former athletic director Ray Anderson was lazy. I know. And that's one of the reasons that he stayed around. We'll talk about that towards the end of the show. But this is a different administration with Graham Rossini. Again, we'll talk about that a little bit later. And I don't know that the patience is going to be there. If it's not, and if Bobby Hurley is fired at the end of the year, there are some very big consequences. First of all, kiss this roster goodbye. The whole thing, whole roster, you're blowing it up. You may not think that's a big deal. You may go, well, I'd rather start fresh and everything like that. Well, let me remind you that Jayden Quaintance and Joson Sanon probably gone. I don't know why they would return for a team or a program and a head coach that did not recruit them. The whole reason that Jayden Quaintance came to Arizona State after flipping his commitment was because of Bobby Hurley. Okay, Bobby Hurley's gone. Quaintance has to play at least one more year of college basketball before he can go to the NBA draft. And he also said, I want to be the number one pick. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know if Arizona State is the place to develop you to be the number one pick. You know who is? Duke, Kansas, North Carolina, Arkansas, now that they've got, of course, I can't remember his name. I'm not going to get there. There are plenty of other places, Houston, that you go to and they can develop you and get you ready for the next level to be the number one pick. Arizona State right now, that's not the place. And it's really unfortunate. So I would imagine that Jayden Quaintance, if Bobby Hurley is gone, is probably going to head for the transfer portal. Even if Hurley is back, I don't know if he's a lock to return. His teammate, Trevor Best, who we just brought in the middle of the year, was definitely one of the ideas of like, hey, Jayden, we don't want you to leave. In fact, here's one of your best friends from high school. We want you guys to build something together here. We want you to become the best friends and dominate this court for ASU. Yeah, if Quaintance is gone, I don't know why Trevor Best is staying. He'd be gone too. Joson Sanon already declared for the draft. You know what, though? I think he needs another year. Not because he's not talented, but because he had injuries that caused him to miss 5 games. And since he's returned, he is not himself. He was shooting 50% from threes at some point in time. He is barely above 40% right now. He does not look like the player that we saw in the first 2 months of the year. Because when we were watching Joson Sanon in the first 2 months of the year, we're sitting there and we're like, yeah, I understand why he's going pro. He doesn't start. He comes off the bench. He plays 25 minutes a game. And he was still one of the leading scorers for this team. Special kid. He's just not there. And you know what? If he does decide to return for another year, Why are you staying at Arizona State? I tell you the same thing for Jayden Quaintance. Yeah, I'm leaving. Okay, what about the rest of this roster? Amir Ali, I think he transfers no matter what. He's not getting the minutes. Bobby Hurley's not giving him a chance, even with the injuries that are on this team. And again, I think that speaks more to Bobby Hurley's inability to coach these kids up. Maybe there is something that's not there for Amir Ali. I think that we have seen enough of a track record at this point in time that we can pin it on the coaching staff. I think he transfers no matter what. Hurley's gone. He's definitely transferring. Sean Phillips, he's got one more year of eligibility. But if Hurley's gone, the guy who brought him in, I don't know why I'm coming back. Austin Nunez returned to Arizona State because of Bobby Hurley. Hurley's gone. Why am I staying? I'm going to leave. Your graduate transfers and your seniors on the team are gone. Alston Mason, BJ Freeman, Bashir Jihad. 3 of your starters, they're gone. Adam Miller, out of eligibility. He's gone. Oh, well, there goes 4 of your starting 5. And I included Quaintance, and I included Sanon. There's your top 7 players on this team. Sean Phillips is gone. Well, there was number 8. That's all gone. Could it be a good thing? Sure, it could be a good thing. Hit the reset button and start over. That's a huge risk. That is a massive risk you are taking by blowing up a roster that has ridiculous amounts of talent. You would think whoever comes to Arizona State, if they can convince these kids to stay, if they can sit down with Quaintance and Sanon and Sean Phillips and Austin Nunez and say, hey, if you give me a chance, I will help you get to that next level. I will help you to become a better basketball player than you could have been at this point in time with Bobby Hurley. I think that that head coach is going to have a very difficult time trying to convince the players to do that. And I don't blame them. I would be on the outside looking in if I am, or that's not the right phrase. I would be uncertain and unsure that I'm going to get those guys to return no matter who the head coach is. Unless Coach K is coming out of retirement to come coach at Arizona State, these kids are gone. And your recruiting's going to plummet. For all the rights and wrongs that Bobby Hurley has done at Arizona State, the man recruited. I already said this. 18 of your top 25 recruits since recruiting has been tracked have come from Bobby Hurley, which includes, I think, 8 of the top 10 ever. Those were Bobby Hurley kids. Those are Bobby Hurley kids. Did he get the most out of them? No. He still brought them in. Still brought them in and proved that ASU, a middling basketball program at best, can bring in the top of the top. That's gone. You are starting over. You're going to get 3 stars pretty consistently, which it doesn't always matter. That's one of the things I talk about with football. But you don't have this pristine head coach that has proven I can get the best talent in the country. That's not there anymore. That's out the door. See ya. Starting over with recruiting. Again, unless you bring in like Coach K, I don't see that happening. This is a full-blown rebuild now. It's not a reload, Richie. I wish it was a reload. It is not a reload. This is a rebuild. Couple of questions I have. 3 questions I have. Number 1, can you even hire a coach that you want? And a couple of questions to go with that doesn't go towards my other 2. Will that coach be able to bring in the talent that we need to bounce back immediately? Or is this going to be a team that doesn't win 10 games next year? How long is it going to take for that coach to generate the traction to get the recruiting? Obviously, Bobby Hurley wasn't recruiting 5-star talent his first year, but he got there pretty quick. Within his 3rd season, maybe 4th season, he was bringing in the Lou Dortzes of the world and the Josh Christophers of the world. It's going to take a minute. Second question, what's your sell for ASU? There are so many things that are wrong at ASU right now, whether it's the consistent fan support of the team, whether it's the monstrous disaster that is Desert Financial Arena, whether it's the lack of NIL that goes towards this. What's your sell to get that head coach to come here, to get these recruits to come here? Because your sell with the recruits was Bobby Hurley. That's gone. Third question, is there going to have any interest with the stadium? I just touched on that a little bit, but that is such a huge question, man. That has been one of the biggest turnoffs for fans, for players alike. No one wants to play at the current Desert Financial Arena. They are desperate for upgrades, and there's been no sign that they are going to get that anytime soon. And it's a damn shame, because I think with the better facilities, with the better amenities, and just a flat out new arena, that's going to help the fans come in. That's going to help a coach be really interested, and the players are going to be interested. There are so many great things to come of it, but ASU is just unable to do it right now. And I don't know that that's the fault of Graham Rossini at this point. This has just been a mess. And one last friendly reminder before we move on to the final part of the show. You're in the Big 12. You are in the Big 12 now. Not only is it good luck contending, but good luck competing with recruiting when it comes to the rest of this conference. Half the teams in this conference are more than good enough to go to the tournament on an annual basis. ASU should be one. They are not one. And you're not going to be one anytime soon. The next question that I have, and as we round out this show, should we expect Graham Rossini to give Hurley another chance? Who is my dream guy? That's coming up next. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Again, I appreciate each and every single one of you guys for tuning in and making Locked On Sun Devils your first listen of the day. A shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. Graham Rossini, the new and improved athletic director for the Sun Devils. Is he willing to give Hurley another run? I don't know. And I don't know that that's something that is fair to place on Rossini's shoulders. This is still a huge mess, that was handed to him by Ray Anderson, and the inability of Anderson to put together competent sports programs, not just basketball. Football struggled under him. Baseball has been a disaster for one of the most historic programs in college baseball history. They can't do anything right. So much of that was because of Ray Anderson. Look at how quickly Graham Rossini is making his impact, though. One of the things that I love so much about Rossini is that he understands the modern layout of college athletics. Look at his presence on social media. You didn't see Ray Anderson tweeting all the time, and yet here's Graham Rossini tweeting out, "This is today's outfit. I'm really excited. Look at all of this," and he interacts. And what are you guys wearing today? Are you guys excited for this game? Something with recruiting happens. ASU brings in a 4-star guy, and Rossini's like, "Yep, there it is. We got another guy building the future and everything." He's one of the biggest reasons that NIL is starting to get pushed into the Sun Devils at this point. He understands the mantra of activate the valley. There's a reason that Sun Devils athletics are trending up right now. Football, through the roof. Ladies volleyball, dominant. ASU hockey, that's a hockey school at this point. So why isn't basketball there? I don't know. But I do think that it's a Bobby Hurley issue at this point in time, which is why Graham Rossini may need to look at that and make a very difficult decision and bring in a new guy. Bring in someone that he thinks represents the way that today's athletics work. That might be the direction we are trending with the next hire. I do think you need to find a younger guy. We're going to talk about my dream target here in just a minute. You have to find someone. If Rossini doesn't want to give it one more run, then he's got to be able to make a very difficult decision. Because quite frankly, this doesn't feel like something Rossini would do. He's only been here a year, and it feels like we already understand the logic that he uses when it comes to building these programs. And it does not look like Bobby Hurley fits that. Now, if you did want to give Hurley one more run, let's start with this. There's 1 year left on his deal, and there's absolutely no way, no if, and, but, or any argument you could give me to extend him. None. There's no reason to extend Bobby Hurley right now. Not a single reason. I don't care how good he is at recruiting. I don't care about anything that you could pitch to me. there's nothing to make me believe and make me excited for an extension for Bobby Hurley. So he's got to be coaching for his job. Maybe that lights the fire under him. Maybe that's what it takes, is Bobby Hurley being pressured into a situation where it's win or lose, adapt or die. Figure it out, man. That may be what it takes. Your best case scenario, if you're Bobby Hurley, is one last chance. That's if you're Bobby Hurley. And again, I just don't think that that's something Graham Rossini is interested in. But I'm not Graham Rossini, and I'm not in the head of a very young athletic director who is trending in a positive direction for this team. Here is my final thoughts here on a potential dream target. First of all, I won't pretend that I'm super in the know when it comes to college coaching. I have a lot of research to do. I want to shout out the Hirsch, who is a Cronkite alum, recently followed me on Twitter last night and gave me 4 names to keep an eye out on. One of those names stood out to me compared to the others. That is Bryce Drew. That name may sound familiar, and it's because he is the head coach of the GCU, the Grand Canyon Lopes. And my goodness, are they having success right now? Yeah, ASU beat them this year. They got that little brother syndrome, but you know who's going to the tournament more than ASU? GCU. In the 4 years that Bryce Drew has been with the Lopes, made the tournament, missed the tournament, made the tournament, and got a tournament win. So he's been to the tournament, the round of 64, just as many times as Bobby Hurley has. In 10 years, 4 seasons, Bryce Drew has been to the tournament. And he has a tournament win. Not a play-in win. He has a tournament win. He has advanced to the round of 32. Hurley has never done that. He has had 10 years to do it. Well, he still has the rest of the year. He's not going. I promise you. If ASU somehow makes it to the tournament, I'll shave the beard. And I'm like 3-0 on making bets about shaving the beard if something happens. ASU's not going to the tournament. Not a single chance. Right now, sorry, I just smacked the you-know-what out of my finger on my desk. Bryce Drew currently has this team 17-5 overall. They are 7-1 in the Western Athletic Conference. They're getting ready to switch conferences, by the way, which could be something that convinces Drew to continue to stay, is there's going to be an upper level of competition. I can't remember the name of the conference, but Gonzaga is in it. So, yeah, I'd be pretty interested to go to a conference with Gonzaga and prove I'm the best of the best. Neither here nor there. They are currently first in the conference, or rather they are tied for first with Utah Valley when it comes to the conference record. They're both 7-1. However, GCU is 17-3 and Utah Valley is 15-5, I believe. They are in the driver's seat to once again make the tournament as the winners of the WAC. So that would be 4 of 5 seasons that GCU would be making the tournament under Bryce Drew. Sounds like our guy. Sounds like that's the one you want to target. I don't know if you can pull him from GCU with the way that program is trending right now. But the one thing you have, and again, this is not going to be an easy sell, you're in the Big 12. That is the conference for college basketball. You are a Power 4 program. There is a history of recruiting. There is a young athletic director who understands the landscape of things. If you are going to pull Bryce Drew from GCU, those are the ploys you have to use. And again, I just don't know if that's going to be enough to get Bryce Drew to leave the GCU basketball team right now. He has won the WAC tournament 3 times. He's been the regular season champ twice. He's got a resume that goes to some of his other coaching places. He's good, man. That would be absolute top choice for me. I just don't know if you can do it. If you can, maybe ASU can turn things around a little bit quicker. I think Bryce Drew could get you contending within 2 to 3 years. Someone else, I just don't know, man. But I guess we'll wait and see, because a lot is going wrong for Bobby Hurley right now. And the decision to move on from him is going to be catastrophic to this program. You're going to be in a rut. I just don't know if Graham Rossini is willing to continue giving Bobby Hurley the benefit of the doubt, though. Are you willing? Let me know in the comments if you are not done with Bobby Hurley, or if you are holding on to the hope that he can turn things around one more time. The recruiting is there. I hear you. We know the same problems, though. Who's your dream target if they fire Hurley? Let me know in the comments. You can hit me up on Twitter at RichieBrads36 or the podcast at LO_SunDevils. Wherever you're getting your shows, like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and you'll get an update whenever we post new content. I appreciate each and every single one of you for tuning in to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast and making us your first listen of the day. And a shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. You guys are absolutely amazing as always. We have got some football news to talk about. ASU has made a couple of splashes with their recruiting over the last 24 hours. And we got to talk a lot more about the schedule, because I have made my way too early win-loss predictions, and I want to share them with you guys. That's all coming up very soon. I'll see you guys later, and until then, you keep it locked right here on Locked On Sun Devils.